guys, Ninja Gaming here. I'm Ed.
I'm Ryan.
And today we are reviewing Dragon's Dogma.
Yes.
A new awesome RPG that we found out and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So without further ado, let's go to Ryan with story.
Thanks, Ed. Alright, so the basic storyline of Dragon's Dogma. You start off in a little small port village, like it's a little small fishing village. As a normal person, you're just a fisherman, living your life, blah blah blah. When suddenly you come home from a day of hard work and fishing, and BAM! A dragon shows up on the beach. Big freaking dragon. So you and all the other men in your little village, and if you decide to be a woman, you decide to go join all of the other men in the village, and you all decide to go try to attack this dragon because you all have some sense of bravery and think you're gonna, beat it. So you run up to the dragon and you attack it. You swing at it a couple times. You can climb up onto it, whatever, and the moment it hits you at all, it goes to a cutscene where you fly across the beach, skip across the sand, and you just lay there and you're like half dead. Dragon walks over to you and with its one fingernail pokes a hole in your chest, giant atomic explosion of blood, and it eats your heart. And then it looks at you, wondering what kind of creature you are, because you're not, it looks at you like you're not human. And then the next thing you know, you wake up in some little house in your village with a scar on your chest that glows and talks to you. And from that moment, you decide, I'm going to go on an adventure to figure out what just happened to me. So you leave your little village or whatever, go on your adventures, and throughout the game in your adventures, you learn you're this chosen one called the Arisen, which is the only person capable of defeating the dragon that attacked you. And I think it's every century or so, there's one Arisen, and they live a very long time. So there's more than just one Arisen, and you learn that throughout the game, that there's more than just you that are still alive, and you have to combine your force to go after this dragon. Well, throughout the game, you're playing through, and you get to different main story quest lines, and as Ed will tell you in gameplay, there are a ton of side quests, and there's also a ton of main quests. And as you're going through the main quests, you learn more and more about the game and the story, and you learn more about your background as the Arisen and the so-called Dragon Slayer. So, yeah, and it gets kind of boring at first. The very beginning is very slow, and then the more you play, it builds up, and it's a very climactic game. But as you're going through, you find out there's also a couple of these cults that are for the dragon. They're all like anti-Arisen, basically, and they try to go after you to stop you from going after the dragon. And throughout the main storyline, the main quests, you have to thwart their evil plans, basically, on your quest and journey to get to the dragon. I really can't tell you anything more than that without giving like the big chunks of game away. So I'm going to give it away to Ed with gameplay, and he will fill you guys in on the rest of this. So there you go, Ed.
Thanks, Ryan. Now on to the gameplay. Now, the one thing that, first of all, before you even start the game and everything, is you find it's so realistic. Like, there's the lights that you have to turn on whenever you go into a dark corridor or something like that. And you have to refill this oil light and everything. It's really realistic. And that's the one thing that's amazing about this game, that just how realistic it can be. Also, if you go out, also during like the night or day, that actually has an effect on what you do. If you go out during the day, you're going to run into less enemies. If you go out during the night, you're going to be mauled by a pack of wolves. Things of that nature, and I learned that the hard way. It's so sad, and it's just all these different quests that you can do in the game. It almost has the same amount of quests as Skyrim does, which is really shocked. The one thing that, as you'll hear in the cons, is that the game is really confusing at some points. It's just really confusing to get to some points and things of that nature. And we'll go into it in the cons. Now, the one thing that was really amazing that makes this game a little bit different from other RPGs is that there's something called the pawn system. Now, in this game, you have 3 different members. Now, you're actually part of this league called with the pawns. And pretty much what happens is you make your main pawn, which is pretty much just like whatever you want to make and create it any way you want. And then there's 2 other pawns that are set up that you go into this place through a thing called a runestone. Now, what you can do in this place is you can look at the runestone and say, okay, I want a mage. I want it to be a female, and I want this ability, so on and so forth. And they'll actually find different mages from different games, from everyone that's connected to Xbox Live or PSN, whatever your system is, and actually bring it into your game, which is a really cool aspect to it. And I really enjoyed that and really loved that how it is. So yeah, that's pretty much it with gameplay. How about we go to pros and cons? Alright, well, the pros and cons to this game. The cons were, first of all, this game can be difficult to follow at some points. Like going on with the main story and finding out things, it's like somewhat confusing in a way.
I agree with you there. Like, a lot of RPGs nowadays, they have like the quest markers and they have like, oh, go here, do this, and it's all in your little quest log or whatever you want to call it. And this game kind of makes you do it on your own a little bit. It makes you actually use your brain, which kind of sucks, but it's also good. But
and not to say it doesn't give you a quest log or anything. Exactly. It does tell you what quest you need to do or anything, but it doesn't tell you where you have to go.
Exactly. It's not completely exactly specific. You actually have to like figure stuff out on your own. So.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the point where we're like, oh well, that takes some time to do and try to find out where it is.
You can go to the wrong place.
Exactly. Or just end up in the dark and get mauled by wolves.
Exactly.
The second thing that we thought is this is not the best looking game out there. You know, like a lot of RPGs, like Mass Effect and Skyrim and everything else like that. It's not amazing graphics.
I'm with you there too. Yeah, the graphics are better than some games, but not better than most.
Yeah.
So there's certain parts in the game where like you'll be doing something and it'll look just amazing, and then there'll be another part of the game 2 minutes later where you just look at it and you're like, what just happened to the graphics? They
could have polished it here and there, like a few places. I mean, there is some parts where I'm like, wow, that's awesome looking, but then you're like, what happened here?
Exactly. There's other parts where it's like this and this should have been like a little bit here, a little bit there. Don't put it all here. Don't leave anything out there.
So yeah, that was the one thing. And then also, this isn't for all players. This is actually a challenging game.
It's definitely not for everybody. I agree with you there.
Yeah, as you heard when I was talking about gameplay, that it's like you have to turn on your lamp when it's dark, and if it gets wet, you have to relight it and everything else, and look at the fuel and and all these different
refill it if it's empty
and so yeah, it's realistic, but to a point where it can be a con. Now, going to pros, this can also be a pro to a lot of people who are massively into RPGs.
Exactly, yeah. It is a con, but also to people that like the more realism of it, that like the fact that they have to do certain things to be able to go through the game, like easy example with a lantern. Some people would like the fact that, oh hey, my fuel's empty, my lantern's barely lit, let me fill it with some fuel, and then, oh hey, tons of light. Like, some people would love that because they're like, oh, it's like I'm actually, living. And some people would be like, oh, well, that's just stupid.
And that's why that's somewhat in between our list of pros and cons. It's for people that, if you're looking for that challenge, awesome. If you're not,
then it's not for you.
Yeah, it's not going to be for you. But also, the one thing I do say as a pro is how realistic it is, and that there is also a lot of different missions. And it just seems like you really see how small and insignificant you are in this world.
Exactly.
This is a huge world, and I was shocked playing it because when I was first playing it, I would play some missions where I'm like, oh, it's just right over the hill. I could just get there, but the hill ended up to be a mountain, and the mountain ended up to be a forest, and
then you look at yourself, and then you look back at where you were, and it's like, oh, there's a long way to get back.
And that's also the one thing that's really cool about this game is that you feel so accomplished when you finish something.
Do. When you do something, you feel like you actually did something.
You feel like it's a massive accomplishment to what you just did, because you're like, yeah, I walked all this way and I fought all these things and I won, and now I can go back and I can win. Blah blah blah.
Another pro that we were talking about is there's a bunch of different, I don't know if you call them professions, vocations, whatever you want to call them, jobs. You start off, like, there's like 3 classes you can pick from.
The normal stealth, melee, and sorcery.
Magic and all that. But once you actually, like, get in the game, there's, like, different trees and branches that go off from those 3 basic ones, and then there's actually a few that combine a couple of them, and then you can actually be like, oh, hey, well, I can do this and this in this one class.
Yeah.
So...
And it's really cool looking that way and everything, and so I really like how they did that system.
Definitely.
And the one thing that I say above all that I loved about this game is the pawn system.
Yes.
The pawn system to this game was just amazing. How you could just get from other people's characters and use them in your game.
Exactly. And there's another pro with the pawn system is that for once in a game I've played, the AI isn't horrible. They're actually smart when you play this.
They're actually really smart. And how, when you're playing the game, they actually react to certain missions and certain things that you're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. Like, even like a lantern. If you give your pawn or partner a lantern, they'll light it themselves. And if it gets empty or if they go in water, they'll take it out and relight it again themselves.
Exactly.
So,
so any other pros?
I think that's basically everything.
So what would you give this game?
Overall, 7.5, max an 8. I mean, it was a good game, but I've played better.
Yeah. So you would say a 7.5 rating?
About a 7.5, yeah.
So something like that. We'll see the thing with me. I would give it a 7 because it's not the best it could be. It definitely needs some work, but it's definitely up there. It's definitely one of those games that I love playing and appreciate and everything. So yeah, 7.5, 7, of course, as always, guys. Subscribe up there, comment what you thought of this review. Any games you want us to do, just comment down below. And of course, share and like. So this is Ninja Gaming, and we'll see you later.
See you guys.